Meeting or whatever it's called, webinar.
Yeah. The off-network laptop and the GRB laptop both crashed.
That's because we let, what's it called, fix the DRV, right?
Yeah, Open Approach converted it to Windows.
All right, welcome to the Planning Commission. We can start with public comment. Anyone have public comment? All right, minutes. Any edits?
I might have a non-public comment. I don't know where we're gonna be in our agenda, but the Winooski Valley Park District update is about the Jacob Krantz parcel, I believe. And I wouldn't mind, hearing that at the select board, which is it's scheduled for 7:51. That might run out of, depending where we are.
Good.
Okay.
Any comments on the minutes?
Make them much bigger. When I clicked on the feedback survey for the CCFP future land use map, I went to the survey. Oh, that's what it was supposed to do, isn't it? I thought I was gonna see results of it. Never mind. I'm too old, Emily.
This is way more.
At least from this side.
Hey, at least that screen
there
is
we go.
clear now.
What's,
I'm still appreciating the clear screen that we have in that room.
yeah,
Yeah, so much better.
yes,
That old
Yeah,
one was so terrible.
projector, yes.
I don't see any edits. Is that true, Emily?
That is my understanding.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I did make those two tiny changes last night. Oh, I knew I'd done some little one typo kind of thing. Yeah.
Typo. But all those in favor? Approving the minutes? All right, opposed? All right. Annual report. Thank you to Steve and Megan. Really appreciate it. There was a lot that happened this year. And Emily, you wrote and said that we have sort of special permission to have it be a little longer. Is that true?
Yes.
I kind of beg, forgiveness. I wasn't sure what to do with that last piece that has all the sort of. I can keep going down.
They're
the
like
bottom.
agenda items.
Yeah, the stuff
I
right at
just
the
kind
very
of left
bottom.
that too, because I wasn't,
Yeah, keep on going.
no, next part, yeah.
Next part down. This stuff, I wasn't sure if I should like expand on all of these or what the.
This was for reference.
Yeah.
Okay, just for reference for things to
The
call
things
out,
that
yeah.
we had on our agenda.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure and I.
Yeah, we won't transmit these things.
Okay.
I have to confess, I didn't read it. I thought it was in the state of you passing it, but maybe that was from reading the minutes.
No, you were right. I passed it on to Megan.
I only had a chance to do it, to make edits and changes last night. So I'm sorry. It was,
Okay, so when I reviewed the agenda, I didn't see this document somehow.
hadn't been turned in.
Okay. Okay,
We put it up there, we got it.
okay.
So what is the timeline for this, Emily and Matt?
You have time if you want to give folks an opportunity to read it outside the meeting, you could approve it at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I think we should do that.
That gives us enough.
Yeah,
yeah.
let's give
I
folks
would-
a
Yeah.
minute to do a thorough review where they can read it.
Yeah, the clerk won't really start hassling us for this until the middle of December.
Oh, good.
But it's about last fiscal year, so if you wait till then, it's really hard to contextualize.
Yeah, detangle it. Well, I was actually thinking that, Matt, when I read the version that I saw, I was like, wow, this feels more recent than in the past, but maybe that's why. Okay, so let's just, we'll, Matt and Emily will just redistribute and we can,
Mhm.
pick it up next time.
And feel free to feed me anything that needs to be edited or changed, and I'll create a secondary copy with the changes in it that we can work from.
Yeah, I could probably put it on SharePoint like we do minutes. too,
Yeah.
if it'd Be easier and then
Brilliant.
one document.
Be great.
Thank you.
All right. We did a poll about meeting times and dates, and I looked at those results, and it looks like 7 o'clock on Tuesdays is really the time that works the best for everybody,
Yeah,
which is fine. It just means we conflict with select board, but that's okay.
unless you guys wanna go conservation commission and meet at 7 in the morning some day of the week. I didn't say.
I think I mean, I would entertain motions, but I don't want to change it and lose humans. That's definitely not my goal. I was just thinking if there was another time that was better that didn't conflict with select board, we should do it. But I'm open to discussion on that if people have other thoughts.
Am I right that every other week, I know the other charges in there is DRB
Yeah.
on Tuesday night? If we were to conflict with them, is that a staff problem?
It can be, it's probably manageable most of the time, but occasionally. We're close to all hands doing that. It's a possibility, though. It's pretty infrequent that I need to be at DRB much anymore.
You are almost always there.
Yeah, I'm
Always
almost always at the
always there.
DRB. I think the biggest challenge is more for the preparation. We would be putting out a PC and DRB agenda the same.
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah, it doesn't seem worth it to me to lose you most of the time, Emily.
No,
Okay,
All right, I don't think we need any motions as long as people are okay just leaving it and handling the select board conflicts as they come.
I also think that when we're not writing a new town plan and being so intense here and having as much interaction, I feel like it's less of an issue in off years.
yeah,
Mhm.
Was the main reason we brought it up was so the public could join us, and now that our room's smaller, we can't, or was it because of the select board? Can you remind me? There were a
Sometimes we
couple.
wanna go to the select board.
yeah. It's a little bit of both. I
Uh-huh.
mean, so when we do have something bigger happening. We are in a bit of a crunch looking for larger space because the natural bigger meeting room is always in use. It's obviously something we've overcome by going to the library or school cafeteria before. It just takes a little more legwork for us, and those rooms aren't always available, so we just have to be aware of that. If we have something where we're gonna have, some interested parties show up.
I think we did one hearing on a Thursday.
Yeah, we've
Yeah, we
done that
can do
too.
them on different, right, we can do the big ones on special days, that's fine. one-offs. All right, well, you guys are so good at attention to detail, but it looks like on my agenda, I have that at 7:10, and then I also have short-term rental at 7:10, and I'm gonna hit that. I would like you to all notice. So I think we should talk about the short-term rental ordinance.
I can very briefly report on short-term rental. I spoke with the town manager today, who's, recently back from leave. He's gonna have a conversation with the select board chair who had kind of tabled consideration of STR while they were working on other things, and convey the planning commission's desire for, an update or a revisiting of that. It's likely that that'll get on an upcoming agenda for a short presentation. They'll probably ask for me to go over and answer some questions. So what all was the ordinance that the planning commission recommended, and what are some of the implications of that? So I'll know when that's coming up and let this group know. So if folks want to attend, they can, and also if there's any, particular elements of presenting that to the board that folks either want to be there for or want to make sure that I hit, we'll put that together.
Was that draft transmitted to select board supposed to be a link so we could review it?
I was only able to find the version that was before your amendments.
Yeah, I think we'll have to dig it out of a select board packet. It may not have been posted to the select board's agenda. It may have just been in the packet that was distributed to members. So I'll loop back with Eric on that too.
Because I feel like we should review it. It's been long enough, even though we voted to forward it. I feel that we should look at it again in case we want to make changes.
Yeah.
I think you should go ahead. I think you should go ahead, Matt, with meeting with Eric.
Yeah.
But we may want to tweak it.
And if we're gonna do that, we may also want just a super quick check to see if they're about the same numbers as in the past.
I was anticipating that those were some of the questions I'd be asked.
Yeah.
And I'd look up the numbers
Right,
just so I could be.
so that we're
clear
a little
about
more
that.
fresh than last January.
And I haven't seen changes in the news about other people except controversy in Burlington.
No, we did get copied on a survey from the Short-Term Rental Owners Association of Vermont, which is not what they're really called, but there's I'm making that up, but there's an organization that lobbies on behalf of short-term rental owners, and they just asked us if we had an ordinance, and if so, what sort of its boundaries were. So I said no. But there is a statewide group that keeps an eye on this issue, that advocates for people who have short-term rentals. Mostly around issues related to either taxation or statewide inspection or regulation, but they're out there. So oddly enough, I had that question last week as well, as we were getting this ready.
I'd like to repeat what may be totally in from everybody's mind, but to me, the only reason that it's urgent isn't that we have many, it's that we don't have many. And that when you make a change, you tend to grandfather in who's already got one by the old rules. And therefore, the value of those goes way higher if it's harder to make a new one. So you sort of create problems.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, and you get the blowback that people in Burlington are giving, where they can no longer, basically Burlington's just like what we're proposing, and people who have had it as a business are complaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. And yes, that sounds good to like relook at it once we have a timeline from them. Oak Hill Road Safety Study.
So. Sorry, I'm just bringing up an email so I can read from it, but we did talk to CCRPC about extending that study. And they said, yes, please put in a request, and Melinda did last week.
Oh, great.
That's good. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
But sounds like it's something they can fit into their work plan, some similar effort level as the first phase. So we're so that sort of free assistance from the RPC on a safety study, as opposed to something bigger like a scoping study, but we'll get to the other half of the corridor that way.
Do you know, because this has been an issue on Oak Hill where there's really no shoulder. North Williston Road was repaved a couple weeks ago down the hill. It hasn't yet had any gravel applied to the side, so in
Mhm.
places, the drop off of the pavement is a couple inches. Other places where cars could go cut the corner, it's not. But is our Public Works planning to add gravel to where the pavement is now higher than the shoulder, so people can't catch a wheel?
I'll check with Bruce, but there's a spec for that.
Yeah.
That you don't leave a low shoulder. So I would assume that's coming. We're just, we're racing deadlines with the asphalt plant right now, so.
Yeah.
You can do the aggregate anytime, but.
Yes,
The hot pavement
Yes.
is in short supply,
okay.
so it might be a little bit.
Just a safety thing,
Yeah.
on a bicycle, it can be tragic. On a car, it can make you swerve.
Pull you off.
Yeah.
And we, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we've got a lot of local road projects. All of a
Like
sudden,
there was a sale on asphalt.
it's the convergence of things that needed to be fixed, although. I don't think I realized the Mountain View Road rebuild was as imminent as it was, and then, Bruce kind of announced at staff meeting last week, oh, we're doing it, okay.
Yeah.
Just, it's a significant rework of the sub base, so that part that's always been really bad. Near the bottom of the dip after Brennan Woods going towards 2A should get a lot better sub base.
Yeah, that came up kind of abruptly, didn't it? Just suddenly you can't go this way anymore.
Well, yeah, I got caught in it because I had brought my trash to work with me last week on Thursday, so I would take my lunch break.
Bring it to the work day.
It just rides around with me until I finally get over to this transfer station and,
Makes the car smell better.
oh, it's a windows down affair.
Compost, so.
Yeah, there's nothing like, the compost never leaves the property. We're slowly gaining elevation at our house, but I went out and I got to the wrong part of Mountain View where I couldn't go, and then I went around, and then when I got to Redmond Road, over last week, Williston had 2 houses to burn on Redmond Road. So we had houses to demolish for CSWD, and they could be used for practice for firefighters. We actually hosted about 80 firefighters from other communities around the region, both in and out of state. Apparently, they all stayed in Taft Corners at the Town Place Suites too, which is kind of cool. They let the town reserve a block of rooms or something, and so they all got to experience our growth center. But as I got to the dump, transfer station, both of those things were going on, and there was someone in a golf cart with flags, and there were cars parked up and down the road, and there were fire trucks from all over the region going in places, and it was an adventure.
I'm surprised they did it during the drought.
They were not allowed to have any fire on the exterior of the structures, so they only did indoor stuff and maybe like roof penetration training, but not like a full burn of the house. It was all, just making a big mess inside or fill the house with smoke, and everybody tries to, get through that kind of stuff, so. Yeah.
Can I just make a couple quick comments about the Oak Hill Road piece? So Emily, I just sent you a photo. I wonder if you could open that up on the screen. I really appreciate that this is finally has happened as much as it has already, and I'm thrilled to hear that the rest of the road could have a similar evaluation. I think that was a loud and clear from our public meeting or public hearing about it. No, we didn't have a hearing, we just had so obviously, the safety study includes lots of different elements, speed, visibility, all of those kinds of things. And at the same time, I think, one of my major concerns about it is to specifically focus on this section. So this is standing on the overpass, looking toward the village, looking toward the four-way stop. And this section, as you see, is incredibly narrow. And if you if you look at the data tables, you'll see this is right near location A. Which is about where my driveway comes down, it's kind of down where that lower car is. And yeah, right there. And from the speed tables, you'll see that people going in both directions are already going over 40. The speed limit is 35 in both directions. There's no space for cyclists. That is more of a concern on the way up. So southbound, with this car is heading toward us that direction.
And I'm going down there, I take the lane.
Oh, yeah, I take the
When I'm
lane
going
too.
up, I worry.
Yes, exactly.
And the sign that you can't read is the one that says allow 4 feet to pass.
Right, and that I think is misplaced.
Yes.
I
Little
think,
late.
well, yeah. So first of all, it's in contradiction to the do not pass. So it says do not pass. Oh, but if you do pass a bike, you need 4 feet of clearance, but that's a terrible place to make that recommendation. Because bikes are going 30-ish, like I easily go 30 down there, right? And so if a car is flying by me, which has happened, at 45, in order to pass me, even if they give me tons of space, they're coming slamming up to the 4-way stop. It's just a terrible place for that sign. And what needs to be there is cyclists make use full lane.
Yeah,
Right,
and it should be, even that should be a little earlier.
Yeah, and it should be earlier, right?
This is not the place for any sign about biking, because you're right in the middle of where the biking is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That-
So, right, so both the content of the sign and the location of it are bad. And I appreciate that the DPW was so quick getting them up, but I think this one is actually causing more problems. And it certainly could be used elsewhere, on Oak Hill Road even, but I think it just, like, we need to take that down and we need the cyclists to use full lane. Then the other thing I wanted to mention is that I know that there was a reluctance to put sharrows on the road surface, particularly on the way up. Of this stretch, right? There is this same sign also appears at the bottom of the hill. And for folks who are headed up that span.
Which makes some sense, except they have to cross the double line to do it, but that's.
Well, that's always the case when you
Yeah.
pass.
Okay,
So,
yeah, okay.
yeah. And there's nowhere in Vermont that you could give 4 feet minimum clearance to pass and still be in the lane.
Yeah.
Right, so the Sharrow question, or actually what the report recommended was the word slow on the pavement at the bottom by the 4-way stop. Heading in the direction that this car is going, right?
Coming up the hill.
Yeah, going up the hill.
Mhm.
And I asked Cy about that. Like you said, Cy, and he said, I asked him, well, wouldn't Sharrows be better? And he said, Sharrows aren't recommended in places where the speed limit is 30 is. Anyway, 35, I think he said. But actually, I went back and looked at the guidebook. What is that? MUT something?
Yep.
Yeah, that one. And it's 40, not 35. So I just want to put another plug in for additional kind of information for drivers, that is a very congested spot. It's not just cyclists, it's also runners along this road. And because again, as I said before, because this is one of the few north-south connectors in Williston, from our population center to much of the kind of rest of town that's lower, lower traffic. It's a really important bike and running, excuse me, running route. And, you know, our town plan says we're supposed to encourage recreation and, you know, usability of roads by all users. And, so I know that there's some reluctance to put, sharrows on the pavement, but, you know, our surrounding towns do it. Richmond has one in the middle of Route 2. As you come into that intersection with 117, it's pretty interesting.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Right in the middle of the, like, right in the middle, right, where that light, that traffic light is.
Am I right? The Sharrow means the bike can take the lane.
Yes. Right,
Um,
which is the case anyway,
It's case anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm more interested in signaling to drivers, like, it's okay that I'm here and that you just have to wait a minute.
That I'm probably slower than you even little e-bike, because I don't put much, I just use it for assist. Coming up that hill, I'm 10 miles an hour or less. And I feel like I'm really holding up traffic if I were to take lane. I never take the lane. I just try to hug the edge and hope people give me 4 feet if they pass. Going down, I take the lane explicitly.
Yeah.
Because it would be unsafe to pass me if I'm going 30 miles an hour down the
Right,
hill.
exactly, yeah.
So to me, I want sharrows for going down, and for coming up, I want lots of signage about needing 4 feet to pass and being aware that there's bicycles and pedestrians on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree, but, I mean, I guess, I think there needs,
The Sharrow does say what bikes can be
Right.
here.
exactly, and I don't think we're there yet with the public education. I have found that the people who give us space are giving us more space, and that's awesome. And that's probably 90% of the drivers, like, that's pretty good.
Mhm.
At least, you know, I'm talking just about this section, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very, it really stands out.
It's a bottleneck.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
and it's
no
very
shoulders.
unsafe.
There's even a guardrail right up to the edge on both
Yeah.
sides, and a drop off from the pavement.
Yeah.
It's unsafe to try to go too close to the edge.
Yeah,
There's zero marked off space.
right,
And you're going then up over the interstate, and at that point, there's this. The visibility becomes better.
oh,
the
yeah,
width
it
becomes
opens
better,
up, yeah,
And half the
right.
people are going on South Road.
Yeah.
So this
Right.
is, I totally agree with you, this like
it's a real.
200 yards of road is a real bottleneck problem.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And I know the drivers get frustrated, but at the same time, you know. An alternative, which would not be, I think. Probably wouldn't make any sense, or there would be a lot of resistance to it. An alternative would be to make the speed limit like 25.
Mhm.
And, you know, which in some ways is kind of reasonable. You're coming right into the people coming down the hill are coming into the village. Into that 4-way stop. And it's a very different, you know, there's a big change from this spot where we're standing here. Into the village. That's a huge transition. So, you know. Other than really drastically lowering the speed limit. I just feel like we need more indication that bikes have a right to be there.
Mhm.
And if you need to wait a minute to pass. Because somebody's coming down the hill in the other lane, then that's just the way it is. And yeah,
Refresh my memory, are we using bicycles may use full lane signage anywhere at this point?
not in Williston.
Not in Williston, okay.
Mhm.
I think
Is
we,
there by South Road on the right side? Isn't there something?
No,
No.
there's nothing on South Road.
the only thing about South Road is there was a sign. Reminding people there might be bikes on the road in the area of Mud Pond, especially.
Oh, yeah, there's
before we-
caution, like pedestrians, bicyclists,
Yeah.
joggers.
Just reminding people that might happen, but might ask, you know, it seems to me just reading it's the MUTCD.
Hmm.
MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. talks about the application of the bicycles may use full lane sign as being where the road lane is not wide enough for a car and a bicycle to
Right.
share.
Right.
And I wonder about. Number one, I agree with the critique of the placement of that's the 4 feet to pass sign. Here,
Mhm.
where I think the message is better, you know, hey, the bike's gonna be out in the lane, like however, whether you communicate with that with a share, a sign. Both,
Mhm.
you know, whatever you do. And then reminding people along the entire corridor, hey, you
Yes.
know. 4 feet basically means change lanes to pass, and you know, it can be in conflict with the double yellow, the yellow lines in Vermont are an advisory marking, they're not a, outright law. Although they're good to follow. One thing more globally, I think we can ask to pick up a few of these in the follow-up study, even though there's gonna be sort of a geographic shift with that one.
Mhm.
The other thing is, when we get talking about top 20 town plan goals, one of them is to get a bike ped plan written. And I think the tendency with those kind of plans is to think about infrastructure, like where should we build multi-use paths, or where should we try to put lanes in, but. There are also areas that just have high traffic stress.
Yeah.
Where, you know, remind me when we get to that project,
Mhm.
hey, let's look at some corridors where what we really need is education and signage. And I think we heard in our preliminary meeting for Oak Hill Road from the Public Works Director. A concern about, well, if we just plaster these signs everywhere in town. People sort of stop responding to them, they become, you know. Kind of part of the background, but if you use them to highlight places that are really critical. And I think of sort of Oak Hill Road, North Williston
Yeah.
Road, probably Mountain View Road, although at least there's some width there and it's, you know, the lines of sight are good. In some places, we'll see how it shakes out on the rebuild, but remind me that I'm saying this, that when we do bike ped plan, we should talk about places where there's just on-road cycling. Where we might not be building infrastructure, but we might be adding signage or talking about, you know, sort of motorist education,
Yeah.
information.
Who is helping Public Works know exactly where to place a sign? Like this is, nobody in their right mind would say, put that sign there, I don't think. I'm wondering if it said, put this, when people are coming south by South Road, and they said, oh, I can't do it right at the intersection, oh, I can't do it on the bridge. Oh, right after the bridge is do not pass sign, I gotta give a little space before this sign, something
Yeah.
logic like that, maybe,
Well,
It
I
was in
think-
the
I think-
safety study.
yeah.
It said, put that there.
right there.
Yeah, well, I'm not right there, but it said, you know, in that general area.
I think we're recognizing this is the narrowest spot
Yeah.
on this part.
Right.
And the spot where there's the worst, you know, when you're going uphill and you're slow and
Yeah.
people are fast and all of that, but. It is a question of what should the message really be,
Mhm.
and what's most effective.
Because to me, the important message is the bikes can take the lane when they're going downhill, because that's mostly what will happen. You're not gonna be passing a 30-mile-per-hour bike and a 35-mile-per-hour.
Right,
sign,
right,
hopefully.
hopefully not.
Really, we need good, strong signage about the bikes can take the lane. That informational sign should be at the start of the road.
Is there a similar signage issue on the other side going the other direction?
There is,
I
and
can't
this,
remember.
there is another one of these exact signs, right as you go past the Ayurvedic Center on the
Mhm.
way up.
Which is an okay place for it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure, that's
We
preliminary.
need to trim a couple branches,
Yeah.
but,
Is that the post we see on the left by your?
no,
driveway?
that's like my mailbox or something, I don't know, it's farther down. Yeah, so there is one on the other direction. My concern, Matt, with that, you know, saturation of signs
Mhm.
issue is that this is a new law. It's only been in place for,
Yeah.
yeah, for just over a year. It was July 1st of last year that it became law. And, you know, that's like 98% of the drivers have gotten their license before July 1st, 2024. And a lot of us don't revisit all of the, you know, rules of the road, very often. So I feel like it's not just general driver education. This is like a very specific change in the law. And we need to do extra, you know,
Yeah.
extra education.
Yeah.
And this is a pinch point. And so, you know, okay, I happen to live here and ride this all the time, but it is a pinch point everyone I talk to who is cyclists anywhere in Williston uses this road and hates it and is
Mhm.
terrified of it. One last thing, and then I'll be quiet for a while, but is that it was mentioned in the safety study that they gave the Strava Metro data.
Mhm.
And in the meeting, I remember somebody said, oh, that's really low. Compared to their sort of sense of how many people would ride on a typical day in that stretch. And I think the reason, I recently got access to Strava Metro, and I think the reason is that it only reports accounts that are public. And, like my account is private. I only let my friends look at it, and so only public accounts are caught by
Yeah.
Strava Metro. So that's just something to consider, that it's only a tiny portion of many users. So just kind of trying to make the data transparent and make sure that we know what it is that we're looking at. As we move forward, and I think that's going to be relevant as we extend to the rest of Oak Hill Road too.
Yeah, there's been some good work done in some bigger jurisdictions like, it's always Portland, somewhere like that, or Seattle, but extrapolating Strava Metro data out to bike counter data. So they took a bridge and they said, well, Strava Metro said it's this many, and the counter says it's, this many more, because not everybody's recording
And you
every
just
ride.
apply that portion.
And they found that they could replicate, you could come up with a number that was okay to use and say, well, if we're seeing this much in Strava, it's likely that this is how many we're really getting. So that work is out there. I don't know if anything more has been done with it recently, but it's worth kind of thinking about. This section is also, I tend to ride this way and I ride South Road. But you've got to ride this section to get to
Exactly,
South Road.
right.
No matter
There's no option.
what you do.
We're gonna build a pedestrian bridge like South Burlington does.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
see if they
and
build it.
and I realize it's not a great, there's not a whole lot else you can do in this setting, like actually trying to, widen the road. That would be an enormous project, and I get that. I'm not saying that should be the solution, but given that can't be the solution, I think we need to do a lot more aggressive, signs and ideally enforcement, and make it safe.
When I moved to Williston, Old Stage Road was a dirt road. And the public works guy was Neil Boyden.
Yep.
And he proposed putting a pedestrian path over the culvert of the Allen Brook on Old Stage Road, and did it. It seemed impossible. And he did it as an extension off the road. It doesn't have its own footings and everything. Do you know where I'm talking about? There's people don't ride their bikes on it because they take the lane, but people walk where it's narrow because there's a culvert over the Allen Brook.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. That washed out a few years ago. Yeah. Didn't it?
I don't remember that part washing out.
Culvert.
Oh, yes, they had to do some work on
They
it
had to
because
do some
water got
culvert.
running under the culvert. or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he put that on there 20 or 25 years ago, and it's still there, still working.
Mhm.
Has a fence on one side so you don't fall off the
Mhm.
overhang. But he did it on a shoestring budget compared to what I thought it would have cost to make safe pedestrian crossing over that.
Right, well, it probably wasn't quite 100% up to code either, but who knows?
No, but I guess what I feel is we need creative thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
On this one, it's all about signage because we can't do much with the infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for listening to me.
No,
I
no, we
literally
appreciate
dreamt
your commitment to these things. We need the persistence to get it across the finish line. Do we want to, are we ready to move on to town plan top 20?
Sure.
So this is a progress update more than anything, and I sort of previewed this 2 weeks ago that we'd be digging into our top 20, and starting to think through what they look like. Emily, if you want to screen share, yeah, just the beginning of the survey results. We've been surveying ourselves as a staff to do this. Um,
And it took you up to T columns to.
It did.
present it.
So I think as much as anything, just looking at the questions across the top and understanding what we're trying to nail down for all of these, is worth it. So checking back in with our verbs, what's the actual work product? We need, what's the first thing we need to do to get this going? Is there a milestone we can identify? Do we need to go out for technical assistance of some kind? Is it outside of the organization? Is it in-house? Any equipment or travel or supplies? Do we need to bring a consultant on board? Do we need select board approval? Do we need to bring in other committees, or agencies? Do we need funding? If so, where are we gonna get it? When are we gonna request the funding? And how much? And, starting to think through the logistics of that. And then are there other actions called for by the plan that this will actually check off our list that might not be in the top 20, which there often are. So we're gonna be continuing to work this into a more refined work plan, but, for example, I had a conversation with town manager today, and I said, one of the things we're identifying that we wanna get into pretty quickly is the bicycle pedestrian plan. And we think we can get a municipal planning grant for it. And he said, well, if it's really important to do, should you just request the money to get a bike ped plan written? And then if we don't have to spend it because you get a grant, great. And I said, oh yeah, you believe me, if you'll let me ask for the money,
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll just come out and ask for the money. So this is gonna inform some actions coming up in the next month or so as we start putting those draft budgets together. The other big news related to town plan top 20 is Emily went to Staples and picked up our banner, which you can see behind you in the room here. If you're in the room, we got a real nice banner with the top 20 on it for display.
Oh,
So, yeah, great. I actually like spending the money on having Staples print things on banners like that, rather than on these relatively disposable poster frames that just fall apart after 2 tries of replacing the paper. So we'll do some more of that with the maps and things, but this is already proving, or this framework, I'm really glad we came up with it. It's proving a really great communications tool with other departments and with the manager's office to say, hey, we've got this top 20. If we can relate things we're trying to do back to that, really helps. The other thing the town manager brought up for me about specifically bike ped plan is that we know we're coming to the end of spending the money from the old bike ped bond, which was taken out over 20 years ago. And also we know that we won't be able to pursue bike ped projects the same way we did under that bond, which was to take out a loan, get a bunch of money, and then go find things to spend it on. We're gonna need to come up with some projects, take out a loan, spend the money right away, and then go pay down the bond. That's just the way the auditor, the auditors, whoever ends up auditing us wants us to do things. So Eric really keyed in on that, and he said, getting a bike ped plan together that can inform what big money projects we go after related to infrastructure is actually really timely and important. So, hey, great.
That's good.
We'll do that. There's 19 other things in the top 20. And we'll be working on all of them.
So we have 2 ambulances with a backup ambulance.
The select board?
yeah, and I'm,
Oh, disconnect audio.
oh, there we go, yeah.
How did you get there?
I clicked more. But it's odd that yeah.
The speaker symbol doesn't let you do it.
Yeah. Technology wins again.
So we'll keep a link going up to this as we continue to fill in these surveys about the top 20 and. You know, if anybody really wants to pick through or, you know, you get excited about a project, you can start to see how it's laying out in terms of. What we think our steps are gonna be as we move forward. And, you know, this is as good a time as any to talk about other things that we see coming in our work plan. Certainly the pursuit of these is a big component of it that you'll see. The other one, a second is maintaining momentum on things we've already been working on that we talked about tonight, like Oak Hill Road Safety Study, short-term rental ordinance, et cetera. We got a bunch of things in progress. And another is whatever comes in the door land use wise. Whether it's a specific plan or just a property owner who says, hey, you know, I'm having a conflict with your zoning. We'll have some of those. I think that where I see that going, other than things we've already identified in the town plan, is going to be other things in the growth center or the area that the town might pursue tier 1A designation in. So we have the form-based code district, you know, relatively recently, we've gone and said what we want everything to look like there. We've got some buildings up and a little bit of an opportunity to evaluate performance of that code and think about some tweaks. But then we've got other parts of the growth center, like the mixed-use commercial district, the Gateway South district down around exit 12, that have had almost nothing built under their standards. Don't seem to fit what people want to do with some of that land, and really that area could benefit from some master planning and some thinking. Before the town goes and spends money on some of the infrastructure projects we have there, like some of the bridge streets. Or before somebody comes in with something, you know, a different idea for what might go in that area. And I don't have anything firm that I can really tell you is going on there, but you might know there was this bid out in the region for a VA hospital for a while, last summer. 50,000 square feet, 240 parking spaces, but we want to be near stuff. And it's like, well, then don't build 240 parking spaces. Then you're not going to be near anything. But, you know, we had people asking us about various places in town, you know, can I fit this here? Can I fit this there? And it's like, well, it doesn't really, you know, work with zoning. And I'm not sure about specific plan. We feel like that's a very arduous process, and truly meeting the defined public benefit standard is really hard. And what instead I'm seeing is I'm seeing things kind of come in one at a time, but all in the same geographic area, and going, well, this could all work really well if it was planned. But it's the site plan review standards in the bylaw are quite prescriptive and kind of like orderly but dumb. Because they're built to address one site plan at a time. I mean, mixed use commercial, since it was adopted in 2009, we got one heck of a tire store out of it. But that's the only thing, you know, we got a tire store that came with an urban park. It's rarity, it's very nice, but it's the only thing that's been built under that code. In Gateway, we got the park and ride, which was basically written into the code, and the state police barracks, which, okay, you know, it met the land clearing standards and some other things, but there's more there. And the sense I get is there's interest in developing those parts of our growth center, but everything's a little speculative right now, and conditions are too difficult right now, not because of the town's development standards, but just because of the economy and all of the things that are going on there. But that something might shake loose at some point. I don't know also if any of you saw the news about the governor's or executive order related to housing. That was issued about a week and a half ago. It, among other things, directs Agency of Natural Resources to limit wetlands jurisdiction to those wetlands that are on the state inventory map rather than doing a field delineation. It reduces wetland setbacks from 50 feet to 25 feet. It dials back the energy standard from the 2024 RBS CBS to the 2020 standard. It directs the state agencies that own underutilized properties to attempt to dispose of them more rapidly, especially to those who would use them to build homes. There's a bunch of other things kind of going in there, and it's another one of those things where I'm looking at our map and I'm looking at what that wetland jurisdiction change looks like. And whether there are properties that become more developable as a result of that. Or does that directive to dispose of a building more rapidly, and we know the shelter's winding down at the former state police barracks, does that mean there's maybe more interest in conveying that off? Maybe at a discount, particularly to the town, where that was not what we were hearing a year ago. So there's just stuff kind of out there.
I know the reason why we had an option for a while, or Eric asked for that, was the potential of a community center. I never heard why that option was not, why it was considered not appropriate.
It's likely not big enough to do that. We actually continued looking at wanting the option on it even after determining that it wouldn't fit a community center.
But there's plenty of room on that property to add.
Not really close to residential of any kind, though.
So it's about 1 3/4, no, is it 2.3 acres? I'm getting my cost and my acreage mixed up. It's 2.3 million,
It's just a lot of,
2.8 acres.
2.8
there's
acres.
a lot of parking in the front.
It also kind of depends on some things that haven't been determined in terms of what the town wants the community center to be.
Yeah.
So one of the big decision points is whether the community center should be co-located with outdoor facilities.
Yes.
And whether the town should be looking for that.
And whether, what's his name would be interested in talking about that on the stuff to the right. There, that,
Yeah, what's called the LaPierre property out in the back there.
yeah,
So that's the thing is the wetlands jurisdiction change, makes that parcel, the
more
LaPierre parcel
useful.
quite a bit more developable. We actually continue to look at the former police barracks, as something that would be nice to acquire just to get the right of way for Depot Street out of one
Yes.
side of it.
yes.
Yeah.
And even, I have a sketch somewhere where you take the 64 feet out of the south side. And you do 3 apartment buildings with frontage on Route 2A and the new side street, and you park behind them, and it all actually fits pretty well. And then you connect that street through to that extension of Sycamore, and
Yeah.
So conditions around us continue to change. It makes sense for the town to be well positioned to adapt to them. I do think if any one of these folks who has been kind of hovering around this part of town emerges with a proposal, it is likely one that won't be fully compatible with the zoning that's there. And as we've had conversations with people asking these kind of questions, we said, well, you're talking about this, and you're also got somebody talking about this over here. And we're talking about building a street through the middle of that. So actually your parking lot driveway should really be a street. Looks like we ought to get this all down on a map in one place and see if there's a way to achieve it. So that might be coming. Another little piece of the puzzle that's not directly connected to this, but you all probably saw the front page of the Observer last week with the auctioning of the Interstate Corporate Center.
Mhm.
Could be nothing, somebody could just own it for what it is. Somebody could decide that they wanted to fully redevelop it.
Is that a historic property?
It's in the state's historic inventory.
Mhm.
It would receive some, at least consideration for protection if the project was subject to Act 250 jurisdiction. Currently, until we go through our bylaw exercise called for in the town plan. We don't, by zoning, have any protection over that structure.
Mm.
Because we don't protect historic structures outside of the village.
But we could, that's
We
one of
could.
the things to evaluate that I know the Historic and Design Committee's keen on getting their white paper rolling on.
Yeah, that's our work product for that one,
Mhm.
initially to
Is
evaluate.
evaluate, yeah.
Yep, so thinking about that. But that's a big chunk of land. It's got part of a planned grid street on two sides of it. And actually has quite a bit of infill potential as well, even if you leave those big old 1985 office buildings on it, so. Interesting, it's either going up or has gone up for auction. Nobody,
Tomorrow.
maybe
yeah.
tomorrow. Nobody really serious is calling us and saying, what could I do with it, which always makes me nervous.
Mhm.
Cause that means somebody's thinking I'll acquire it and I'll figure that out later.
So are there implications for tenants in any of the structures there, like?
Sounds like some more than
Roadhouse, et
others.
cetera? Yeah, okay.
Roadhouse is on a ground lease that's good till 2028, that was in the article. But other folks have shorter term
Mhm.
leases there, or, you know, are questioning, you know, what their future might be.
Tomorrow at 1 p.m.
So we'll know sometime after that.
I think it says auction location is there. Or is it, I don't think it'd be online.
Maybe there'll be a meeting out on the.
Isn't it currently a daycare center or something?
There's a daycare in the historic building.
Right, okay.
There's a couple of law offices and other things in the office building, but a lot of it is empty.
Yeah.
And then the Roadhouse has been relatively okay, successful, does all right, so.
Is there, I know for a long time there was that question about the building that road. Um, Isn't there a section of road that we really wanted that would be kind of connecting in the grid streets that was in that area?
Yeah, future Trader Lane sweeps along the western edge of the Texas Roadhouse parcel.
Right.
And we actually pursued a design of Trader Lane that did not require any of that Roadhouse parcel, so it swings westward a little bit, and you may recall, we had a conversation with Vermont State University across the street about swinging Helena Drive to the west to align
Right.
with that, and they ended up being amenable to that. So this map, I think, does not fully show everything bent to the west the way we ended up, but we did. But that could, if the folks who owned the Roadhouse parcel were more amenable to it, things could move back. It really depends. I think there's an Act 250 condition on Texas Roadhouse that says if Trader Lane is ever built, they would close the curb cut on Route 2. Which, if you've ever seen somebody make a
Yeah,
scary left turn
Crazy.
into,
yeah.
you know why V-Trans is keen on that. So we'll see, I mean, but that's, there could be a different owner there. That might have a different philosophy about what they wanna do with that property. We are continuing to work on the tax increment finance district study, trying to understand some of our infrastructure costs beyond the actual road construction and some of the feasibility of what could be built there. We're hoping to wind that up toward the end of this year and be able to, talk to the select board about whether it makes sense to pursue TIF or not. And then in the background, since we started studying TIF, there's been the creation of this new program called CHIP that you might be hearing about, which is essentially a smaller version of TIF. It's a project-based TIF, and it's really developer-driven. So there's, I believe, no townwide vote on a CHIP. It's the developer goes to the select board and says, hey, I've got this piece of property, I want to develop it. I want to finance the public infrastructure on it, or the streets or the wastewater treatment system or whatever. Through the increment on taxes that I'd be creating. So let me build this, let me take out a loan to build my infrastructure. Give me 70% of the local taxes from that new development for 20 years. Give me 70% of the education taxes for 20 years, so I can pay off my infrastructure.
what leeway does the town have in enforcing the level of infrastructure that's built in terms of like complete streets? In terms of things from complete streets to bike paths to
Yep.
geothermal that goes in under the roads?
Well, so we haven't talked about geothermal in a regulatory
Mhm.
scheme yet. But yeah, we have street specifications, both public and private streets must be built to the
Mhm.
DPW spec. We have our official map that says where streets should go. And in the form-based code district, we have street specifications that say not only is this where the street should go, but it's this particular street that we have a design for.
With this type of
Yeah.
path also?
Yes, so that if it's a parallel path. You know, like Trader Lane, you all voted when we moved the Trader Lane green to also make Trader Lane, the street type that has cycle track on both sides.
Mhm.
So that's on the map, that's regulatory now, if you're building Trader Lane, that's the street you're building, whether it's the town building it or a private developer, you know, building a piece of it. Outside of form-based code, we're not as specific about what street exactly, but they still have to pick from that menu, that's in the public works standard specifications.
It's more suburban, street standard.
Yeah, we have one that's basically 26 feet of pavement, curb to curb with, you know, a white line 3 feet in on both sides. I'd actually love
Matt,
to.
What was,
Sorry.
where did the chip thing come from? How is that new right now?
CHIP was adopted as part of Act 181 last session.
Okay,
I believe it's in that bill, in the Be Home Act. And it's another version of what used to be discussed as mini TIF or project-based TIF. And it's also managed by the Vermont Economic Progress Council. Like TIF is, but it comes with, it does not involve the same but-for test that TIF involves, where you have to find that but for the use of the TIF, the project wouldn't happen. And it doesn't require a townwide vote, but it does require a vote of the select board to authorize it, because obviously you are foregoing some tax revenue, when
Right.
that new development comes online. And statewide, you can have up to $200 million worth of CHIP projects. So the cap on TIF is no more than 2 new TIFs in every county of the state. There's just a numerical number on the number of TIF districts. In CHIP, there's just a total, how much increment can be out there, and it's 200 million is a very, very high number.
but
You
we
know,
couldn't initiate that chip. We'd have to wait for a developer to do so.
yes, but I think there's gonna be a role for bigger and more capable towns to seek out developers who we think CHIP might be a good fit for and help them assess the opportunity. So I think some of our developers that, you know, own a large parcel that have a big public infrastructure element, like a lot of streets or something like that. It might be worth approaching them and saying, you know, have you thought about CHIP, or even offering to spend some money to do the numbers on a CHIP study, and just say, you know, do you think this would work? Certainly would help serve the town's housing goals, among others, to, you know, play a little more of a hand in that than just waiting to see what
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah,
It might be worth it. There's a really handy summary online. Excuse me, it was part of Act 69
Okay,
and,
Separate.
just skimming this really quickly, it doesn't seem to mention, it says municipalities have to apply to the Vermont Economic Progress Council to designate housing development sites. And then towns can retain a portion of new property tax revenue to pay for infrastructure investments for up to 20 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know quite where the developers come in. They must come in some part of the process here.
Yeah, I think when it says apply to designate housing development sites in the statute, that's actually like a much more detailed application. It's
Oh.
like this developer, this parcel,
I see,
this
right.
project, this piece of infrastructure.
Got it.
But there does need, that's where the local governing body is deciding to support it, is that
Right, okay.
they're the gatekeeper of like, are we
Yeah.
gonna see if Pepsi will approve one or not?
Yeah.
So you know, you have some, as a municipality, some control over who pursues what that way.
Yeah.
In your town.
I'm really glad to hear that, because when I made that scary face a minute ago, I was imagining that the town didn't have a lot of control. I think Hannah maybe had the same similar kind of
Yeah.
reaction, like, wait, what about the streets? What about the?
No,
we
no.
impose standards on these things, and it sounds very like, you know.
No, you can impose all of your development standards and you could ask, you know, that you or the select board could say, well, yeah, this meets. You know, this has met the minimum for everything, but we don't think it's worth it. To partner with you on a chip unless this project also does these other things, and you can have that conversation, you know. On a kind of an individual or a project basis. There is a hope, chip was by design made a lot simpler than TIF, and you know, there's certainly a hope in the folks who drafted it that. You know, some of these rural village centers where you just need a small wastewater treatment system, effectively a big septic system, and then you can have a restaurant or a B&B in town, or then you can have a small apartment building on the main street where something else has, you know, become decrepit. But I see a role for it in, you know, TIF is such a huge lift. As we're finding out as we study it. I think even in, you know, Williston sized places, there are chip projects to be thought about, so. We'll see.
All right, should we move on to my favorite topic, the capital budget review?
It is your favorite topic, Shayla.
Oh, I know, some of us just getting stuck in our ways.
Like me and Oak Hill Road.
Exactly. We all were things. Greta and the sewer allocation.
Right.
So all we gave you to look at was what you wrote last year, just to give everybody a picture of what the planning commission's comment on this has evolved into. You do have a statutory role in the review of the capital budget. Keeping in mind, you have a new town plan to review the capital budget against. I think it has a lot of the same values in it that you would have talked about a year ago, but it's worth going through this, updating, thinking about other things the town's made progress on. I did also preview this for the town manager in our staff meeting today, and just said, you know, this is coming, we're getting ready. He says, yep, I'm getting ready to be responsive to it. So, roughly, we'll follow a similar process to years past with this.
Will he do the thing? I mean, he did a different presentation of the budget last year. Matt, do you know if he's gonna do that again this year?
I think
Very
so,
helpful.
yeah.
Right. And then are there immediate things off the top of your and Emily's heads, or things that we should think about that are new or more specific in the town plan now, that you think are directly relevant to this that we should consider or include, make sure to include?
I think it would be worth scanning through our town plan actions for anything that says fund as the verb, and just seeing if any of those are things that ought to be considered for inclusion in the capital budget. Or if they're things that require funding elsewhere. The other thing Eric and I that spoke about briefly today was his desire to get some of the things that are in capital over into operating over time. So we have some relatively small things, small equipment purchases and things like that that are living in the capital budget that really makes sense to just stick in the operating budget and kind of be done with it. That sort of opens up some headroom for the capital budget to be about these much bigger things.
Or more one-off.
Yeah, or
Things, yeah.
more one-off, more, you're not, you're buying pickup trucks, every 7 years, and it's just kind of. Like the way we buy laptops, we just know we're buying one laptop a year generally, and we budget for it. So. Some of this plays into the conversation around what might happen with the library project or a community center project or a multi-use path between the Village and Taft Corners project. We have bigger ticket items coming where the town is gonna have to start thinking about those kind of things in the capital plan. And really shifting the focus to those.
Do commission members have specific requests for how we do this year, or concerns that you already have about it?
I can't remember how we got the budget last year. I mean, like, we received the document. It's very long, but did we get a presentation, or do we run through it? How did we get the information previously to respond to it?
And I think we just got the document.
Okay,
We used to have a presentation, which was actually kind of helpful.
So last year. We got the document on December 3rd.
Okay, which is so late.
Unfortunately, I can talk to Eric about the timing on that.
Yeah.
I think it basically gave us one meeting to review the comment memo. And I think for a lot of the breadth of how the planning commission comments on it, a draft will be okay to work from. And I think also we might be able to get out ahead of it by just going through these town plan actions. And noting things specifically in the town plan that ought to be, or the planning commission wants to say ought to be expressed in the capital budget. Say, we expect to see this, where are these things in the capital budget?
Could we kind of be more proactive and say, in our new town plan, like I see Emily's already
Right,
search for the funding things, but
right,
also tell the other departments, these are the things that we think should be, plan commission in our review capacity. With the new town plan, these are things that we want to identify as
yeah,
top priorities.
yeah,
So, recreation and parks, please respond accordingly. DPW or whatever, the other departments. As they're making their budget, they already have our preferences
mhm.
out there. Would that be possible between the?
I think we can start drafting that and working with you all on it right now. So, literally pulling the fund, actions out, literally looking at and directing other departments saying, hey, the new town plan has support for you to build pocket parks or to enhance infrastructure or to continue to provide really good emergency services. Like, there is support in this plan for all those things. We would expect to see them in the capital plan. The other thing we've always had is pretty significant input from the energy committee around the various energy and climate goals that the town plan has and how the capital plan helps with that. So things like EV purchases and
I really like that, Megan. I really would like to do it differently. So I think that's because then we're not like complaining about what they did. We are saying, hey,
Right.
as you build this, here are the things. And I think, I don't know, oh, sorry, it's not Emily, whoever's staffing energy committee, if we could ask them to do the same things. They do normally, and the housing committee too now. Because they will have thoughts as well. And so if like housing committee and energy committee can do it for their sections and we do it for the rest, where we go through and say here, because the fund is that is a good place to look, but it's also like some of the evaluates will take money. So I think we should
Mhm.
also just look at that too, Matt, like where do you guys need money in order to actually do some of the evaluations or report writing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the evaluates are probably gonna roll into the operating budget, so that's
Okay.
part of the work planning exercise is which of these are we asking for in. 27, 28, 29, and what I'd really like to do is just come up with a number that says. I need to ask for this much more. Going forward each year in our miscellaneous planning studies line item. Because I've programmed in these things that the town plan said we wanted to get done, so, and maybe this year it's bike ped and next year it's.
Yeah.
Social infrastructure, and next year it's something else, but that we have that kind of in front of us and just say, for not a whole lot of money out of the operating budget in the grand scheme of things. We would be committing to this work plan. So trying to not do all the expensive ones in the same year also.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That is good though, right? If we manage to get all this thing together with, some kind of Excel spreadsheet and put it together. Some of those will go to this slides, and even if they don't manage to do that this year. We can rinse and repeat next year again and say, we said this last year.
Yeah,
You
Oh, yeah.
crossed 2 lines, but we still have 20 more lines left, right?
Yeah.
Like the sidewalk plow, right?
Yes.
Like that was extra compelling because we kept saying it year after year and reminding them, and thank you, Chapin.
yeah, and you do wanna do that, you wanna ask for some things now because you expect to be asking for them 3 years from now, but, they'll have their turn, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, infrastructure projects especially, just because they're so expensive, and I think also. The environment we're in where the town is considering bigger things, like the library expansion or a community center or a big multi-use path expansion. There's a way to do that where it's not like hungry hippos between those different budget items, but rather a collaborative approach that says, how do we achieve some of all of these goals? And make sure that no one project kind of sucks all the oxygen out of the room, and then, oh, we spent all our money and we can't do anything again. So I know Eric is always thinking about what's the town's tolerance for its overall level of debt service, and then how do we sequence in the things we need. He told me today, he's asking the select board, I think tonight, to sign a purchase order for a fire truck. It's a fire truck we won't buy until something like 2028,
I think it's 2029.
2029. But we need to get in line now, because that's how long it takes to get a fire truck made, and then they're $1.5 million.
Wow.
So.
Oh my gosh.
That's like most of our match on an 80-20 match for the bike path from Williston
Right.
by truck. A very big, very nice truck.
I was gonna say, we sell the old one instead of using it for a few more years.
Yeah, and there's always sort of there's trade-offs with all of that, and you kind of hedge your bets around all your vehicle replacements, that if you have to hang on to them for another year, you can do that for a little while, and then eventually it really bites you. Dump trucks have gotten silly expensive, and those are things that we replace frequently because we use them to plow and all that kind of stuff. So all of what we've done in the town plan, pat yourselves on the back once again for a really terrific town plan, because it really truly is forming the foundation for a lot more in context consideration of all of these issues without anybody getting overwhelmed. And of course, we have to compromise, we have to right size things to our budget, but this is a really useful tool. Both in capital and operating, to be able to pull it back and say, well, we said this thing was so important that it was a top 20, or
Yeah.
this achieves a bunch of goals if we do this, so.
Rutland was voting today on TIF funding. I'd be interested to see how that goes,
Yeah,
because it's in our town plan to work out whether we can do TIF and how much stuff, but. With bonding for the library. Bonding is gonna seem tight, assuming the library expansion happens, that bond will soak up more than what is being paid off as the next couple of years go by. So We need to have TIF funding lined up for the things that TIF funding can pay for, is my opinion.
The Rutland TIF passed overwhelmingly,
Good.
1,190 votes for against 213 against.
Wow.
So that says to me, somebody did really good public education about TIF.
Mhm.
Cause that's what's so critical is having people understand that it's a general obligation bond. But that there's sort of double protection against that ever hitting the taxpayer.
They are potentially on the hook, but.
Yeah, cause you have to be.
Yeah. And that one particular one was for basically redoing all the water and sewer and
Mhm.
burying the power lines in that street. So that other projects could happen.
Right, they have a hotel project on the books as a first project, so.
I guess even preemptively going back to what we send for our comment, there's a lot that's in our town plan, and like you said. And like that's been brought up, like with the library expansion, like there's potentially this other big expense and kind of that Hungry Hippos
Yeah.
effect, like. When we think about something like the multi-use path, which is a very large, very complicated project. How do we make it stand out or break it into pieces in a way in this, where that, like, I know this is, we'll think about it as it comes up, but I just wanna put it on radars of like, is there pre-planning we can do around, like, if we have a bunch of smaller, if we have smaller things that are easier to grant, it's like, okay, well, we placated the planning commission, we gave them some stuff, but like, there wasn't actually any money allocated towards this path, like, the path is big and complicated and hard, and it has many different pieces, and it just feels like we could just never move forward on it. So like, are there ways to break it up? Are there ways to help the select board understand how we're prioritizing things? Like, I'm mostly interested in the breaking up, if there's anything we can do around that, instead of being like, we want pedestrian things, like. Yeah, is there any prep we should do ahead of time so that it can be scoped to a smaller piece? When we say, hey, select board, specifically allocate this in the next
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, I really want to help the town as much as we can. Not to scope, study and design things and then kind of therein it dies. And part of that is, I think, planning for success and planning for successful size, project pieces when you need to, or. We've got a big plan that makes sense, and then we've got implementation that's phased, or we've got. Some idea of what the most important or next thing is to do. And I see the stumbling blocks the town hits, and it's usually, well, this is really great, but it's really expensive and it's getting more expensive every year. Or this is really great, but we didn't realize how extensive the wetlands were, or. And a lot of that, what I see. Happens when we drag these decisions out.
Yeah.
We wanted to build an Allenbrook Park. There was a design for Allenbrook Park in front of the DRB when I got here in 2008. And in 2024, oops, all wetlands. And you've done all that design work, and you've saved up all this recreation impact fee money because you thought you were gonna spend it there, and you've not studied other sites, and the opportunity cost of being committed to that, and in the background. Your wetland delineation either hadn't happened or it expired, and climate change happened and the field got wetter, and now you're kind of back to square one. And I think we're sophisticated enough that we can kind of start to get out of that pattern. And start to take on bigger projects. So I think we can do it. I think town plan helps, the planning commission helps. The dialogue between the planning commission and the select board really helps. And having a real conversation about those big ticket items, and like, well, can we get a piece of a path? And some of, can we make progress in the library over here and get a piece of this path here, and let's not pit them against one another. Just raise everybody's taxes. Double it, I don't know, be great. No,
So-
there are ways to do that.
But I think specifically for this, I think I'm gonna try to articulate what I think we're saying, which is for this capital budget to go to please ask you, Emily and Matt, to go through and sort of compile
Yeah.
what you think makes the most sense for us, not to send as a comment, but to send to departments and say, hi, dear Department X, just alerting you that this is in the town plan and capital budget is coming up and we think this is applicable. Please consider it in your budgeting process. And please also ask Housing Committee and Energy Committee to do it for their two, and Conservation Committee, Housing, Conservation, and Energy to each do it for their parts of the town plan so that we get their expertise in it and we can incorporate that into what we send out so that we're being, like Anna said, like Megan, sorry, proactive in that part of it. And then we can kind of retain that for both how we respond to whatever is put forward and kind of going into the future years. Am I encapsulating that correctly, everyone?
Yeah, I think that's just right. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that is extra new work, but I think that is more in line with how I want to be trying to be more collaborative, I guess. And however we word it, I want it to be clear that we're trying to be more collaborative rather than complaining about what's been put forward, doing the recommendation up front.
And transparent.
Okay. I really
So
like that.
timeline wise, today's October 7th. You have October 21st. Matt, Melinda and I are gone November 4th for the conference.
So go to the 18th.
So we can probably get a template going. Maybe if there's two planning commission members that help with that initial, we can start throwing things in there, and then if you want to finesse the language, have something to review and send out into the world after the November 18th meeting.
Is that too late, do we think?
Yeah, it does seem really late. I mean,
I think
I
if we,
realize the constraints, but I just wonder
I think
if
if we
we
could get.
received it
yeah.
last year, December 3rd. Like, that's basically the next meeting.
Let me see if we can get something like for the 21st that we can, for October, that,
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks from now, that we can at least show you that we can distribute internally.
Mhm.
And most importantly, probably communicate with the manager.
Yeah,
Say, this is where we're at.
I think that would be super.
We'd like this to be part of the conversation when you're talking to the select board about the capital plan.
Mhm. Yeah, and maybe also to get it on the radar screen for the other departments, like, oh, planning, the planning office really wants to. Prioritize the items and expenditures that have been highlighted in the town plan. And, heads up. I think that giving them that indication, obviously not with the threat that we wouldn't accept anything else.
No,
But because we don't really have that power anyway, but
these fall within your purview, so. please consider.
right, but just to say, like, we have the new town plan. We hope you're on board with these funding priorities and create your budgets accordingly.
And they can say it very positively, which is if you include these things, your budget's likely to make it through and likely to be easy to sell to the public because it's in line with the, we
Right.
already, for you identified where you should spend the money that
Mm-hmm.
fits with the town plan.
I guess structure and hierarchy, it probably should be a memo from the planning commission to the select board and town manager. And then talk about if it's collaborative in nature, maybe make it project based and you talk about where each department comes into play with that topic. So rather than here's select board, we're directing you to each department and department head, make it project based. And then call out what funding or departments would be involved.
Yeah, that's a great.
And number one will be the path, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like.
Emily, I think any recommendations you might have on how to make it not. Yeah, to make it collaborative. to make it positive and
We can do
collaborative and not obnoxious.
Well, to some degree, the pitch to department heads is like, we have this tool that can help you ask for money for the things you're very likely working on and pursuing already.
The things we know you're already doing,
Yeah.
but we can perhaps help with the funding.
Yeah, and be able to point to that. I don't think there's a whole lot that the town spends money on that runs counter to town plan goals. There are times you look at certain things and go, why are we doing this or why are we doing that? And it's worth bringing those up, but most of it is about support and maybe just elevating certain things a little more than they otherwise would be.
Great.
Thank you. All right. Zoning bylaw citation cleanup and clarification draft.
Yeah, so we did a speed run on the bylaw last week. Each of us took like 11 chapters and went through. And we looked for anywhere that it talked about the old town plan and we fixed citations for that. I don't know, Emily, do you want me to share that or just?
Yeah, it's only the one in the folder, right? It's on.
Yeah, I did not upload it yet because I know we have a little bit more of a ways to go here, but.
Yeah, I got it.
Where am I? Okay. But just. And I was really mean and gave Dave all the procedural chapters at the beginning that he was least familiar with. Which was mean, but yeah, if you go into. I don't know, go into like one of the.
Yeah, one of the zoning district chapters would probably be
Yeah.
better.
Just to see what it looks like. There's, as with all times when we're gonna run a bylaw hearing, this is actually a good one. So we had this call out in the ag rural zoning district about why do we have this zoning? And you can see the strike through talks about lands identified in chapter 13, which it doesn't exist anymore. But we have this whole other we have this whole other set of objectives, 17A through C, that are very clear about what they want rural Williston to look like and be like. So it's like, okay, well, this is an opportunity to call those objectives out. And then just state them. So that thing that keeps starting sentences with rural Williston is actually 17A, B, and C. I took the numbers out and just made it a little more of a paragraph. But this is the kind of thing we're mostly talking about. The reason that we touched every single chapter in here is to do this. But we also found a few things that we wanted to try to add some clarity to that are hopefully not super controversial. We didn't throw chickens in. Badly as I wanted to. But for example, I need to workshop this a little more, but down in 44, I wrote a definition for signs. Cause we didn't actually have a definition that said what's a sign. And let's see if I can. Oh God, you gotta scroll through all of. There you go. It's harder than you think to say what a sign is. There was an explainer box in the chapter that said a sign is any attention getting device. And some of the reasoning behind that is because like you want to be able to regulate the inflatable waving arm man. And
And that guy on 22A who would park his hay trucks.
Hay trucks.
Right.
Right.
The billboards themselves.
So you want to be broad. But then there's things you don't want to regulate, like I really don't want to regulate cafe umbrellas, even if they have a. Pellegrino logo on them. I don't want to regulate vehicle charging station. Pump islands. I don't want to regulate things that are a sign when you're standing right next to it, but from the road, you can't actually discern a message from it at all. So there's a number of definitions of signs that talk about that, that say, it conveys a message out to the public realm. If it's a directory sign somewhere in the middle of the CSWD compost piles. And you can't see it unless you're on CSWD's property, do we really? Care much what it looks like? It still has to meet lighting standards and things like that, but. Do we care? So, but there's also some things like the use of trade dress colors on structures or windows, like, wrapping a gas pump island in the corporate colors, and it's architectural, but not really, it's really like. It's extra, we've run into that, so. And other things have actually, I kept it in, but have become far less of an issue, like, when's the last time you saw a vending machine outside? They used to be a thing, like every
Yeah.
store, right? There was a brightly lit Coke machine. And it was like a big 4 by 8 foot internally lit sign, and
Right next to the payphone.
yeah. Nobody does that anymore. Or almost nobody does that anymore. So starting to think about, so that was a clarification. We had a little bit of holdover from our transferable development rights and density stuff from one of our last amendments. We wanted to be clear that if you had transferable development rights to spend, you could spend them in the RZD or the growth center, but not in the ARZD. And we wanted to be clear that you could spend them up to these sort of density bonus limits. So for example, the RZD is 5 per acre, 7 per acre if affordable, also 7 per acre if you're using TDRs to get to that higher level. So Melinda wrote some clarifying language about that. Emily.
Can I just ask? Sorry.
Yep.
So just to back up a tiny bit bigger picture, you guys did the initial cleanup to make it align with the town plan, but then there's some odds and ends that are kind of left over from other issues or other things that you were wanting to do. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Almost always clarity or memorializing the way that it's been interpreted since forever. So another one is, the way we handle what we call the average setback exemption. When all your neighbors are closer to the street than the zoning allows, there's a way we allow that to be averaged. And a strict reading of the way it's written right now, if your neighbor's property is undeveloped, how do you average that in?
We're like 500 feet back from the road, you're
Or-
not
yeah.
penalizing the person.
Right, so none of that, like, really, you wanna average 300 feet either side of the street. Of all the, either the structures that are there, or assume that the undeveloped parcel could have a structure right on the line. Like, the number's not ever really zero. And if the house is 1,000 feet back, but the setback is 50. Give credit, there could be something at 50 feet tomorrow. So just like, how do you do that math? Little bit of work on what landscape buffers and setbacks, just trying to standardize that into a more conventional setback table.
Yeah, so this would end up living, we've decided chapter 13, because that's our setbacks table. So a lot of times people will call us and they'll be like, where's your setbacks table? Most traditional zoning codes have one. Each zoning district had a slightly different definition of what use is allowed in the setback. How do you calculate average setback? Each one was slightly different and it made your eye twitch, so making sure that they're all the same. And then also a more substantive change, but fairly minor, where the parcel has frontage onto public or private roads, the zoning administrator may permit development to meet a side yard setback on the secondary street. So we've had instances where a property has a 50-foot setback or 25-foot setback on two sides of the property. And this would create some flexibility for that.
Yeah, so if you don't do this, you end up with weird things where, you're 50 feet from both roads on a corner. And on the side of the house that doesn't have the front door and the garage, it's just weird. Even weirder, you'll get a property that, has that and then is shaped like a diamond. Meaning it either has no side setbacks and 2 rear setbacks. Or 2 side setbacks and no rear setback. So if you come to a point in the back, either you have a triangular parcel or something like that, so. Just giving the administrator the ability to apply a little bit of common sense and say like, everybody from the street can tell that that street frontage is your side yard. And we're gonna let you put a shed in your side yard, even though it's closer to the street than the street setback would be, would allow, so. And then, yeah, just having a consistent table, consistent language for how we're gonna manage the average setback exemption, because that was repeated in all of the zoning district chapters or most of them and worded a little differently each time, which was never the intent. So we'll go through. What we wanna do is present this to you more formally at an upcoming meeting and then, get us into the hearing cycle on it so we can clear the decks and, move on to more substantive bylaw changes. But there's these couple of things where it's like, it would help us to just get a little more clarity, without making big policy shifts.
Yes, the far right columns, for side and rear setbacks, you're probably wondering why it means sometimes or 15 feet. So take the residential zoning district, right now it says setbacks from side and rear property lines may be controlled by the landscape buffers. Where a buffer is not required, the minimum setback is 10 feet to the side, 15 feet from the rear. So it needs a little language workshopping, but what the intent is going to be is clarifying, and here I have it in the tiny little footnote text. If you are building a house or duplex on an existing lot, where you're doing any of the regular setback things, those are when the standard 10-foot side, 15-foot rear setbacks apply. It's when you're doing a bigger development, infill or open space subdivision, in some cases where we have home business outdoor storage. That's where the landscape buffer, so there's always been this gray area between chapter 23 and these setbacks. And people are like, well, what do I do? We always have to answer it, and I think making it very clear that there's a fork in the road for setbacks. The other thing is for the village chapter, there's probably gonna be a handful of clarifying amendments working through that review. I think track changes deleted some sentences. Or like there's a place where there's like half a sentence. And a couple of little grammatical, numerical things to get cleaned up. So there won't be any substantive changes. Or they'll be substantive in that they're bringing back something that a prior iteration had, in a draft iteration had. There is an amendment, so a couple years ago, we tried to add a requirement that abutter notifications go to property owners and tenants. The state law requirement is owners. Tenants works really well when your abutters are only single family homes and you could do current resident and owner. Gets really hard when there's multifamily or commercial tenancies, so the proposal is to go back to just the state law standard. I don't know, are there other semi-substantive things that we?
Think this covers. All of the ones I can think of.
And we'll see a red line draft.
Yeah, we'll,
I'm just really impressed. You got through the whole.
Yeah.
No kidding.
It's not a speed run.
bylaw to update it for the current town plan.
yeah, well, there was, honestly, there were fewer comprehensive plan references than I. Thought there would be. Some of the chapters don't talk about the town plan at all. There might be a few of those where it's worth plugging something in.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is are we missing it?
Yeah,
You're right.
I mean, a lot of it is either about. The town plan wants you to have a design conscious pedestrian friendly downtown at Taft Corners, or the town plan wants you to have a rural working landscape. That balances conservation values and things like that, like those things relatively unchanged and the bylaws relatively unchanged around the way it does it. There is probably more room to call back to, especially, the objective level, because I really like the objectives where you're saying, this is what we think it's gonna look like if we're doing it right. And you say the purpose of this town plan is to make it look like we said we wanted it to look like, so. There might be some more places we can plug that in, and certainly going forward, when we're working on more substantive amendments. There will be sometimes we really want to quote from the town plan and say, you know, we really said we wanted to look at the changing nature of uses in the industrial zoning districts and adapt to those through, you know, creating better development standards. That's one of our goals in there, so.
This one's semi-substantive, so in chapter 13 for access, 13.2 access management. Adding in that, congestion and safety hazards. The applicant is responsible for ensuring site layout and use does not result in congestion or vehicle queuing on an adjoining public or private roadway, so. We've always interpreted that out of the intent statement, but never had a good thing to pin the finger on, so an example during COVID was when. Goodwill drop off got really popular and was causing backups out onto Harvest Lane. And then recently with like the CSWD review about show us your information that trucks aren't gonna be hanging out on Redmond Road to get to the facility.
Right.
So just something to hang the hat on. Could use some wordsmithing possibly. Matt, I might have put the thing in about second pre-application in here.
Yeah, we've should talk through that a little bit. We've had some sequencing issues where habitat disturbance assessments are required. So this is where you come in with a sketch plan review. And you're proposing development that impacts a mapped wildlife resource, which triggers you giving the town money so we can hire a wildlife biologist to go study the area and come up with recommendations, and then your site plan needs to be responsive to those. Like wetlands delineation, there's some seasonality to when those habitat disturbance assessments can be done. And you really want to know what the HDA says before you do all your design work and file your next level application, your discretionary permit. So building in some ability to get a project at the sketch plan and say, oh, there's a wildlife resource here. We need to know more about it. We need your design to be responsive to what that wildlife biologist finds before you go design a whole entire building and site. We'd like to have you go to the HDA and come back for essentially a second phase pre-application.
Yep, and it would also apply to other things like the wetlands delineation, a shared parking study, traffic study. I added in a sound or vibration study as may be required by chapter 18. So there are several of these sequencing things where it would be good to, in daylight with conservation review and a DRB discussion, talk about the site layout. I have it worded where the DRB may require or recommend. So some applicants listen to us and say, hey, there's potential wetlands on your site. I think you should get a delineation before you even file a pre-app, and they kind of push back on that. So it gives that option for the DRB to require it or recommending, depending on, you know, what level of risk do we think is gonna happen, and it ultimately will save a lot of time and headache and expense, because we had projects that get through a full DRB review. And then they find out, oh, our site is entirely wetland, or like CSWD, they have to realign their whole building.
Makes sense.
Nevertheless, it's a formidable document to go through, so well done.
Yeah.
Well, the reward for a job well done is more work to do. We're aware of that, but that's okay. I think we have a really good game plan for getting through this stuff, and you know, I'm really, like I said, I'm anticipating whether it's because of our TIF study or applicants who show up and want to come talk to the planning commission about what our rules are or other things. We're gonna need to be pretty proactive about achieving town plan goals and moving things through process. Think about the hours that went into the Glacier specific plan or the chimney supply specific plan. Think about how you would change the specific plan process. It's not like that. I anticipate we're gonna have a lot of work to do, in the next couple of years. So trying to get these housekeeping things done is what we can do right now before those things show up on our doorstep.
Yeah, there's probably another round of more substantive, but still technical and cleanup things around. Specific plan, around some things with phasing and development review procedures. But
Do
that
you-
would be a future project.
Do you think that where we have the town plan, code and the form-based code, that in those areas, specific plan is irrelevant?
So we said it would not be considered in the form-based code
Right.
area. And I think that the reasoning behind that is it's really dangerous to have someone come in and say, I just don't want to do anything in your form-based code. I just really wanna, build my whatever that doesn't fit anything and wouldn't it be great? And it's like kind of an automatic turning away of that.
Yeah.
I should mention another work plan item that we're likely to be able to do is we have a town plan goal to go in and assess the performance of the form-based code. And we may, through some leftover money CCRPC has, be able to actually bring the consultant back up for a check-in with the planning commission on that and kind of a walk and talk about what we like and don't like and what things have changed in the area. May even be able to pull some planning work in around that mixed-use commercial district, not so much with Jeff, but as part of the project. So that would be a springtime 26 project if we're lucky, but it could be free work we get out of the RPC, so. Always looking for that and just trying to make sure we have capacity for that in the springtime.
Cool.
A possible loose end, we've asked for the extension of the study on Oak Hill Road. We have not, I don't think, asked for an extension of the bike ped path from Taft Corners to the village to extend through the village. When should be the timing that we ask for that?
I think that's gonna be part of our next step, UPWP request.
Okay.
Would be probably to say we wanna do our constraints analysis
Yeah.
here. And add some consideration for what happens in the village up here, and I think I've said it a bunch of times to this group, but the goal is. Have absolutely as much planning work done before the state shows up to do their corridor study. So that we can just hand it all to them and say, oh, you wanna know what we want? Here's everything we want, and we've actually done a bunch of public process.
And if you do everything we want, then we'll take over the road after that.
We'll right back to that class 1 town highway discussion and say. I mean, of all the places you could take a highway. Taking a mile in the village.
Yeah.
Way less complicated than. Taking Taft Corners. Also think it's worth it to continue to use examples like that for advocacy to shift that program. Cause if you think about. What V-Trans does in the village. What we'd really love for them to continue to do is just drive through with the plow when they're doing the rest of Route 2. Would that be so bad? And I know we also wanna narrow the road and do things to it that they might not wanna touch with their plow. But
They're gonna lift the plow as they come through.
yeah, and the other thing is. we have
That's
to-
what our plows do when they
I
drive
mean,
Route 2.
I'm not the public works director, but if we have to plow it, we're already coming out here to plow the town hall parking lot and Village Community Park and Central School Drive.
And Oak Hill
And
Road.
Oak Hill Road and
Yeah.
Maple Road and North Williston Road and
And
So-
the side streets like Slate Barn Drive, town plow goes in there, plows Slate Barn Drive, comes back.
So if you gotta-
ups its plow.
if you gotta plow from Old Stage to Oak Hill on Route 2, it's, it's 2 more passes each direction and. Bruce said, sure, we'll plow more roads, just buy me more plows and get me more people to drive them. It's 7 to 8 miles of new road equals needing a new plow and another person. Because one person can plow 7 or 8 miles of road twice in a shift. So that's plow math. But it's, you know, it's important to know.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple math. So, yeah,
I think we should end on plow math. I think that's a good.
got it.
That's a
Okay,
good, a good end. So we'll see, so you guys will bring back another draft of that and in the future and we'll go through it, but thank you for doing that. That is, yeah, good to get it cleaned up, like you said. All right, anything else before you adjourn? Thanks,
You're good.
everybody.
thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you.